The man who made my life hell in high school walked into my office, looking for a job. I never thought I would see him again. I had 10 seconds to decide if I would ruin him or forgive him. I will never forget the first time I bled in that hallway. It was the middle of sophomore year, and the school smelled like wet gym socks and cafeteria pizza. I had just shut my locker when I felt the sharp shove from behind. Books spilled, my head cracked against the metal, and laughter filled the air. I remember the pain, sure, but what stuck with me more was the face. That smug, triumphant face of Derek Monroe, like hurting me had made his day. Back then, I was the kid with the hunched shoulders, the oversized hoodie, and the backpack that always hung a little too low. The easy target. The kind of kid who got picked last in gym class and sat alone at lunch pretending to be busy with homework. Derek was everything I wasn't: loud, athletic, popular. He had this walk, like the hallway belonged to him. People say high school is just a blip, but some of those blips leave bruises that never really fade. For a long time, I carried that day with me like a scar you can't see. He did not just knock me down physically. He made sure I stayed there, metaphorically speaking, for the next 3 years. Little things. Accidentally knocking over my tray in the lunchroom. Spreading rumors that I stank. Calling me Benny the basement boy in front of girls I liked. And the worst part? Nobody really stepped in. Teachers looked the other way. My guidance counselor once said I just needed to stand up for myself. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Jenkins. That helped. I do not know what would have happened if I stayed in that town. Maybe I would have become some bitter guy pumping gas and trying not to make eye contact at the grocery store. But when I graduated, I left like my life depended on it. And honestly, it did. I worked 3 jobs through college, slept 4 hours a night, ate dollar menu burgers, and took online courses during bus rides. I started building websites on the side, then small business systems, then full-scale back-end tools. Somewhere along the way, people started paying real money for my work. A few years later, I co-founded my own software company, and we struck gold with a logistics app that helped streamline shipping for mid-sized warehouses. Long story short, I made it. I had an office downtown, a reliable team, and a name people respected. Not flashy rich, but stable. Proud. Clean suit, firm handshake, quiet confidence. And then one Tuesday afternoon, he walked in. I was going through quarterly reports in our conference room when my assistant knocked and said we had a walk-in for the operations manager position. That was unusual, but not unheard of. We encouraged initiative. I told her to give him 10 minutes. When I looked up from the numbers and saw who stepped through the door, it felt like the world skipped a beat. It was him, Derek Monroe. The same slouch, the same square jaw, a little older now, but unmistakably the same guy who once slammed my head into a locker like I was nothing. Only this time, he was wearing a cheap tie and holding a folder. His eyes scanned the room, oblivious to who I was. He gave me this hopeful little smile and said, "Hey there, I'm Derek, here for the manager role." And just like that, the whole world flipped. I had 10 seconds to decide how this was going to go. Was I about to crush the guy who used to crush me? Or something else entirely? And you are not going to believe what I did next. I should have kicked him out. That was my first instinct. Just say, "Sorry, position's been filled," and watch his hopeful little face drop. But I did not. Instead, I stood up slowly, walked around the table, and shook his hand. Firm grip. Slightly sweaty palm. He looked me in the eye and smiled like we were equals. He still did not recognize me. That hit harder than I expected. I had spent years remembering his name, his face, every word he threw at me in that damn hallway. But to him, I was just another face in a crowd. Forgettable. Background noise. That stung. Even now, with all my success, with the high-rise office and the view of the river, I was still haunted by a kid who probably never thought about me again after graduation. I gestured to the chair across from me. "Tell me about yourself," I said, keeping my voice steady. He launched into a story about working warehouse jobs, managing small teams, learning the ropes of logistics and supply chains. Said he had bounced around for a while after a bad layoff during the recession. Claimed he was looking for something stable, something that mattered. He talked a lot about hard work, about earning your keep. He even threw in a line about humility. And all the while, I just sat there, nodding, watching him closely. The irony was almost too perfect. He had no idea he was sitting across from the kid he used to make fun of for being quiet and awkward and poor. The same kid who once had to wear the same hoodie 3 days in a row because we could not afford a second one. And now, I was the guy deciding whether or not he would get a paycheck next month. It would have been so easy to reject him, write him off like he once wrote me off. But here is where things got complicated. Because as much as I wanted revenge, part of me also wanted answers. So I let the interview run longer than I normally would. I asked him questions, real ones, about challenges, about conflict resolution, about how he handled mistakes. He answered honestly, or at least he sounded honest. At one point, I asked, ever have to deal with a toxic environment? Someone who made things difficult? He paused, smiled kind of sheepishly, and said, sure, yeah, but I try not to hold grudges. We all grow up, right? That line stuck with me. We all grow up, right? Maybe he had. Maybe I had not. I thanked him for his time and said we would be in touch. He left the office with that same hopeful posture, clutching his folder like it held his future. And when the door clicked shut, I just sat there in silence. I thought I had buried that part of me. But seeing him had kicked up the dust, and now it was all swirling around again. And what I did next, well, it changed everything. Because I did not just walk away. I went digging. I stayed late that night. Everyone else had cleared out by 6, but I was still at my desk at 9, scrolling through an old yearbook I found boxed up in the storage closet. Page after page of familiar faces, frozen in time. The fake smiles, the 2 big tuxes, the scribbled messages in silver ink. Never change, bro. See you at state. All those promises that faded the second we tossed our caps in the air. And there he was, Derek Monroe, varsity football, class clown, senior quote, no regrets. I stared at that picture for a long time. My stomach was twisted in knots, not because I hated him, no, something else. Something heavier. Like I was wrestling with a version of myself I thought I had grown past. You see, I built this business from the ground up. I clawed my way through years of stress, debt, and loneliness just to create a place that felt safe for me and for the people who worked here. And now the guy who made high school hell wanted a job inside that space? Part of me wanted to scream, absolutely not. But part of me wanted to believe people could change. I kept thinking about the way he talked in the interview. The humility. The way he carried himself. It did not match the loudmouth I remembered. So I did what I always do when things feel uncertain. I made a spreadsheet. I listed pros and cons. Yeah, I know how that sounds. But I needed logic to drown out the noise in my head. Pros. Years of experience in logistics. Good communicator. Seems motivated. Might have genuinely changed. Cons. Was a bully. To me, personally. Could be faking it. Might not handle pressure well. Hiring him could backfire if old habits surface. Still, I felt stuck. It was not just about him. It was about what hiring him would say about me. Would it make me look weak? Forgiving? Strong? Would I be erasing the damage he caused by letting him through the door? Or would it be the final proof that I had moved on? I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked over to the window. The city lights flickered below, stretching into the horizon like a million little chances waiting to be taken. That is when I made the decision. The next morning, I walked into the office and told my assistant to schedule a second interview. But not for Derek. For someone who remembered exactly who he was. I called it a follow-up, but really, I needed to look him in the eye again. I needed to be sure I was not just falling for some polished version of the same guy who once shoved my head into a locker and called it fun. He showed up on time, early even. Wore a slightly better shirt this time, but it still had that faint fray at the collar. He sat down, nervous but trying to hide it. People who have been through hard years carry it in their posture. I knew the look because I had worn it once too. I did not waste time. I asked him questions you were not supposed to ask. Not illegal ones, but pointed. Personal. What made you leave your last job? He hesitated. Company folded, he said. Management was sloppy. Last one in, first one out. And before that? He shifted in his seat. Worked at a plant in Indiana. Left because my temper got the better of me. Said some things I should not have. Nothing violent, he added quickly. Just words. But it cost me the job. There it was. A crack in the smooth exterior. So I asked something more direct. Ever look back at high school and think you could have treated people differently? That froze him. He blinked slowly, like the question had come out of nowhere. Yeah. I guess we were all kind of jerks at that age. I know I was. Stupid stuff. Trying to look tough. I'm not proud of it. I nodded, slow. Then I said it. Quietly, but clearly. You bullied me. Do you remember? The words just hung there. He looked at me. Really looked. His brow furrowed. I could almost hear the mental gears grinding. Wait, he started. Benny? Benjamin Kramer? I felt my jaw tighten. I had not heard that version of my name in over a decade. He exhaled hard. Manuel. I honestly did not put it together. I swear. You look different. No kidding. I was not the skinny, hunched-over kid anymore. I had filled out, cleaned up, found my voice. But still, he did not recognize me until I told him. I was a mess back then, he said, rubbing his jaw. I was angry all the time. My dad, he was not exactly kind. Football was the only place I felt like somebody, and I guess I took that out on the wrong people. On you. There was silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. He looked ashamed. And not in a performative way. Not like someone trying to get the job. Just a man who had been caught between his past and his present, with no script for what to do next. He stood up. Listen, if hiring me would bring all that back for you, I get it. I do not want to make your space worse. I will go. No hard feelings. And that right there was the first honest thing I had seen from him. But I still said nothing. I just watched as he slowly turned to leave. And then I saw what fell out of his folder. A picture of him holding a kid. His kid. The picture landed face up on the floor between us. Derek bent down to grab it, but I beat him to it. My fingers moved faster than I expected, like part of me had already decided this moment mattered more than the rest. It was a candid photo, nothing posed. He was crouched down in a park somewhere, holding the hands of a tiny girl in pink overalls. Her curly hair was in little puffs on either side of her head, and she had a grin that could melt pavement. The look on Derek's face? Pure love. No fake smile. No bravado. Just that quiet, vulnerable expression only a parent can wear. I handed it back, but not before asking, yours. He nodded, suddenly more fragile than before. Yeah, her name's Riley. She's 5. Smart as hell. I get her weekends and every Wednesday night. Co-parenting situation. Not ideal, but I am trying, you know. I did know. More than he realized. My old man bailed when I was 7. I spent my childhood watching my mom work double shifts just to keep the lights on, while I convinced myself I did not need a dad. But the truth? I always looked out the window on Friday nights, wondering if one day he would show up. Derek sat back down, folding the picture carefully into his folder. His hands were shaking a little. Look, he said, his voice low. I do not expect you to forget the crap I did. I was a punk. I know that. I made life hard for kids like you, hell, for you. And now, maybe this is karma. Maybe I do not deserve a second chance. But I am not that kid anymore. He stared at the table, then added, Riley's watching me. She copies everything I do. And I'll be damned if I raise her to think it is okay to be the kind of man I used to be. That hit me harder than I wanted to admit. Because deep down, I believed him. And that made my next decision even harder. I could see the headlines in my head, local CEO hires childhood bully. Or worse, the whispers in my own office. Would people respect me less for forgiving him? Would they think I was weak? But Riley's smile stuck with me. That little girl, grinning up at the man who used to make my life hell. A man who, somehow, was now trying to do right. And right then, something shifted. I did not tell him if he got the job. I just said, I will think about it. He nodded once. No protest. No pitch. He picked up his folder, gave me a quiet, thanks for your time, and walked out. And when the door closed behind him, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. But it did not last long. Because an hour later, I got a message from one of my employees. They knew who he was, and they were not happy about it. The message came from Tasha, our floor supervisor. Sharp mind, sharper instincts. She had been with the company since year 2 and had a reputation for never missing a detail. The subject line read, Are we really interviewing that guy? I opened the message. Hey, sorry if I'm overstepping, but I just saw Derek Monroe walking out of the office. Please tell me we're not considering him. He made my cousin's life hell back in high school. Same town as you, right? He was notorious. People still talk about him. Just thought you should know. It was not angry, but it was heavy. Caution wrapped in concern. I sat there, staring at the screen. That one email cracked open something I was trying to keep locked down. This was not just about me anymore. Turns out, Derek had not only been my nightmare. He had a history. People remembered. And now his name was floating through the halls of my company like a ghost no one wanted to see again. By lunchtime, 2 more quiet messages slid into my inbox. Both employees. Both with ties to the same town. Both with Derek-shaped bruises from way back when. One had been shoved into lockers. The other had her yearbook defaced with rumors he helped spread. I felt my stomach tighten. What had felt like a moment of personal reflection was quickly becoming a company issue. A cultural risk. If I brought him on, I would not just be hiring a guy with warehouse experience. I would be hiring someone who once turned school into a war zone for multiple people under my roof. And still, that photo of Riley sat in the back of my head. I decided to clear my schedule that afternoon. I needed to think. I needed air. So I left the office. Walked 2 blocks to this quiet diner I used to go to when the company was still just me and a laptop. The same waitress was working. Lucy. She always called me Han, and I never minded. I ordered coffee and sat by the window, staring at the steam rising from the cup. I thought about how easy it is to label people: villain, victim, hero, boss. But most of us are just unfinished stories. We carry mistakes. We carry guilt. And if we are lucky, we grow. That night, as the streetlights flickered on and the sky turned to ash, I made a decision. I was going to call Derek back, but not to offer the job. Not yet. First, I needed to see if he was willing to face the people he had hurt. It was a risk. I knew that. I called Tasha first, asked if she would be willing to talk, just talk, with Derek, face to face. I told her I was not asking her to forgive him, just to give him a chance to listen. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she said, "If you're really serious about making this guy confront his past, I'll be there. But I'm not sugarcoating a damn thing." Fair. I reached out to Derek next. Told him I needed him to come back in, but it was not a job offer. I said, "There's a conversation waiting for you here. One you probably owe." He said yes without hesitation. When he showed up that Thursday morning, he looked different. Not physically. His shirt was still one wash away from losing its shape, and the same tired lines traced the edges of his eyes. But something else had shifted. There was a stillness to him. I led him into the back conference room, where Tasha was already seated, arms crossed, eyes cold. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Tasha leaned forward and said, "Do you even remember what you did to my cousin?" Derek looked right at her and said, "I don't know exactly who your cousin is, but probably not as much as I should. And I'm sorry. For all of it. For every name I called someone. Every time I tried to feel bigger by making someone else feel small. I was angry back then, and I used that anger like a weapon." Tasha's jaw clenched. "You made people scared to come to school. You turned my cousin's life into a daily nightmare." He nodded. "I believe you." She blinked, thrown off by how direct he was. "Why now?" she asked. "Why should anyone believe you've changed?" He reached into his folder again, pulled out the photo of Riley, laid it gently on the table. "She's why? Because she copies everything I do. Because one day she's going to ask what kind of person her dad used to be. And I want to be able to tell her I tried to be better, even if it was late." For a minute, there was nothing but the hum of the ceiling light. Then Tasha stood up. "You've got work to do," she said. "And I'm not giving you a clean slate. But maybe people can change." She walked out without another word. Derek stayed seated, hands folded, eyes on the photo. I did not say anything either. There was nothing to say. After a moment, he stood, turned to me, and said, "Thanks for letting that happen." And then, without waiting for a response, he left. I watched him go, and part of me wondered if that was the real ending. No job, no redemption. Just a man slowly working off a debt he spent years pretending he did not owe. But the truth? That moment did something. To him, to me, to this company. And I still had one more choice to make. I did not sleep much that night. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning above my bed like it held answers. I kept thinking about that room. Tasha, furious but brave, and Derek, folding up the photo of his daughter like it was the only thing keeping him steady. The words, "maybe people can change," echoed in my head, soft and sharp at the same time. By morning, I had made my decision. I walked into the office early, before the coffee machines had even started gurgling. I called Derek from my desk. No voicemail. No text. Just a straight call. He picked up after the second ring. "No hello, just a nervous, hey." I said, "You're hired." He went silent. Then, "You're serious?" "I am. But it's probationary. 90 days. You start in the field. No corner office, no fast track. You'll be working under Tasha. She signs off on you, or you're gone." Another pause. Then something that caught me off guard, his voice cracked. "Thank you," he said. "Seriously. You won't regret this." "I hope not," I told him. And I meant it. The real test began the following Monday. He showed up early. Wore the same tired shirt, but with a new notepad and steel-toed boots. Spent his first week in the loading bay stacking inventory, running deliveries, keeping his head down. And here is the thing. He worked hard. No ego. No complaints. Took feedback, even when it was sharp. Especially when it came from Tasha, who did not go easy on him. She never let him forget who he used to be, but she also started, slowly, to admit who he was trying to become. Still, not everyone was thrilled. I got cold glances from 2 other team leads. One in turn even quit, citing a company culture shift. I questioned myself more than once. Wondered if I had made a mistake. If I had let my own search for closure blind me to the damage Derek could still do. But then came the storm. A literal one. One Friday afternoon, a truck broke down on Route 17. Full load, tight delivery window, one of our new clients. Everyone else was booked or home early. Derek volunteered to handle it. He spent 5 hours out there in the pouring rain, coordinating a second truck, helping reload everything himself. He called me soaked and out of breath at 9:15, just to say, job's done. Client's happy. That night, I sat on my balcony, thinking about where we had started. About how some stories do not tie up clean. They just keep evolving. But I was not done. Because a week later, something happened that I never expected. A letter arrived. Not from Derek. From his daughter. It was a plain white envelope. No return address, just my name in shaky handwriting. The kind only a child could write, big loops, uneven slants, letters crashing into each other like they were racing across the page. At first, I thought it was a joke. Someone playing around. But when I opened it, the paper inside was sky blue with stars drawn in the corners. It smelled faintly like strawberry-scented markers. The note read, Dear Mr. Ben, my name is Riley. My dad said you gave him a job and you were brave because you used to not like him. I think that is nice. He says he made big mistakes when he was younger and now he is trying to be better. He brings home food and he plays tea party with me even when he is tired. That is how I know he is good. Thank you for giving him a chance. I love him a lot. Riley Monroe. I'm 5. I spelled it all by myself. P.S. He says he used to be mean in school. I'm glad he's nice now. I hope everyone's nice to you too. I read it once. Then again. By the 3rd time, the words blurred. I sat at my desk, hands gripping the edges of that paper like it might fly away. For the first time in years, I let myself feel everything. The embarrassment. The anger. The kid who never got a note like that. Who never had someone say he mattered. But also the peace. Because Riley's letter was not just a thank you. It was proof. Proof that people do not just get second chances, they pass them forward. Derek had not just changed. He was raising someone not to repeat his mistakes. I pinned that letter to the wall of my office. Right above the first dollar we ever made as a company. Right above the certificate from the Chamber of Commerce. Because nothing else came close. A week later, Tasha dropped by my office. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, half smiling. He's not terrible, she said. Still rough around the edges. But he shows up. And he listens. I nodded. She paused before leaving and added, You picked right. And I finally let myself believe it. But this story does not end in neat circles. Because about 2 months later, something else happened. Something that threw everything off balance again. Derek did not show up to work. No call. No warning. Just gone. I waited until noon before calling him. Straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later, same result. Tasha said she had not heard from him either. People started whispering. Guess he finally bailed. Knew it was too good to be true. I stayed quiet. Just waited. By the end of the day, I had nearly convinced myself he was gone. That maybe the redemption arc was just a mirage. That maybe some people cannot outrun who they were. But then, just before closing, I saw a figure through the rain-spotted glass of the lobby door. Soaked. Mud-splattered boots. Hair plastered to his forehead. Derek. He walked in, limping slightly, clutching a crumpled medical folder under one arm and Riley in the other, wrapped in a hoodie, asleep on his shoulder. I could not leave her alone, he said quickly, like it needed no explanation. No sitter. No one else. His face was pale. His eyes were bloodshot. But he looked right at me and said, Emergency room. All night. Bronchitis. Her fever spiked. She stopped breathing for a minute in the car. His voice cracked. I did not have time to call. I nodded. Sit down, I said. You're here now. He slumped into the lobby chair, Riley still cradled in his arms like porcelain. I handed him a bottle of water, then sat across from him in silence for a few minutes. I thought I lost her, he whispered finally. You didn't, I said. You kept her safe. That's what matters. He nodded. Slowly. Gratefully. We did not talk about shifts or policies or the fact that he technically no-showed. We did not need to. That night, I closed up the office myself. And as I was locking the door, I looked over at the wall in my office one last time. The letter from Riley. The framed $1. The old class photo I had once kept in the drawer as a reminder of who I used to be. I took the photo down because I realized something. I was not that kid anymore. And he was not that bully. We were just two people, bent but not broken, trying to build something better with the pieces we had left. I never told the team why I gave Derek a chance. Most of them figured it out eventually. Some never liked it. Others quietly respected it. But that was never the point. I did not hire Derek for closure. I hired him because dignity does not always come from payback. Sometimes, it comes from choosing to rise higher than the people who once pulled you down and reaching back, even just once, to pull them with you. And that is the quiet kind of triumph nobody claps for. But it lasts. Thanks for listening. If this story hit home, drop a comment and let me know what you think.